What if the first thing you drink every morning is quietly pushing you closer to a stroke? My name is Gerald Matthews. I'm 73 this year. I used to be an electrical engineer, spent most of my life around wires and blueprints. But these days it's just me, this old chair by the window, and my quiet little home in northern Arizona. For over 20 years I had a ritual: wake up, stretch a bit, shuffle to the kitchen, and pour myself a tall glass of sweetened iced coffee, not the fancy kind, just store-bought cold brew with vanilla creamer. I thought it gave me a gentle start, a little comfort in a changing world. That morning didn't feel any different. The sun was just peeking through the blinds. I sat down like always, took a few sips, leaned back to breathe in the silence. Then something shifted. My fingers tightened around the glass. My heartbeat skipped. My vision dimmed for just a second, enough to make my hand tremble and my chest tighten. I didn't fall, but I felt the floor inch closer. By noon, I was in the ER. The doctor's voice was calm, almost too calm. He said I'd had a TIA, a transient ischemic attack. Some folks call it a mini-stroke, but there was nothing small about the fear that gripped me. What shocked me wasn't the diagnosis. It was the question he asked next. Just one question. What do you drink first thing in the morning? At first, I thought he was joking. How could my morning coffee, my harmless habit, have anything to do with blood clots or oxygen to the brain? But that night, as I sat alone staring at that same glass of coffee on the counter, I began to retrace my mornings. And what I found made me feel like I'd been poisoning myself slowly without ever knowing. Turns out it wasn't just the stroke. It was what led up to it: the sugar, the artificial creamers, the caffeine hitting my blood before anything else, the way I skipped water. The drinks I thought were helping were silently working against me. And I'm not sharing this because I like talking about hospitals. I'm sharing it because someone out there might still be sipping the same thing I used to. If you're over 60, like me, what you drink in the morning matters more than you think. In fact, there are 5 common morning drinks that can quietly increase your stroke risk. Some you may even think are healthy, but they're not. In this video, I'll walk you through each of them, one by one, not as a doctor, but as someone who learned the hard way. You'll find out which drinks are safe, which are dangerous, and how one small switch saved my brain and maybe my life. So let me take you back to the first mistake I made every single morning. That sweet, smooth iced coffee. My quiet killer in disguise. It tasted harmless, but acted like a slow poison on my blood vessels. Every morning, right after I got out of bed, I'd head straight to the fridge. There it was, my chilled bottle of pre-made iced coffee. A splash of vanilla creamer, a few ice cubes, and I'd sit back by the window with that sweet, familiar comfort in my hand. I used to think it was better than hot coffee. Gentler on the stomach, easier to sip as I watched the morning light slide across the table. I never once thought that little habit could be harming me, but after that scare, the mini stroke that nearly flipped my whole life upside down, I started digging, and what I found made my stomach churn more than any cup of coffee ever did. According to Mayo Clinic and several heart studies, when you drink something sugary and caffeinated first thing in the morning, before you've had any water, it hits your body like a shockwave. The caffeine tightens your blood vessels. The sugar thickens your blood. Your heart has to pump harder through a narrower path. It's like trying to water a garden with a blocked hose. Pressure builds up, and that pressure goes straight to your brain. I realized I had been doing this to myself every day for over 20 years, and I thought I was being good. I didn't take my coffee piping hot. I didn't add whipped cream or caramel, just iced, a little sweet and cold. But that little sweet was loaded with syrup, the kind that's not just sugar but artificial chemicals designed to taste like vanilla or hazelnut. I never looked at the labels. I just drank it because it felt easy, familiar, safe. That's the dangerous part. It feels harmless. I've talked to many friends since then, and they all say the same thing. They prefer iced coffee because it's smoother, less bitter, but most of them are over 65, and not one of them realized how badly those artificial creamers mess with your arteries. Some of those store-bought blends even hide sodium in the ingredients to preserve flavor. That means more strain on your heart, especially in the morning when your body is still adjusting from sleep. Looking back, I wish someone had warned me earlier. If I had known the science, if I had seen what sugar plus caffeine can do to an aging heart, I would have changed long ago. Now, I've switched to something different. I make my own cold brew at home, just black coffee steeped overnight. I pour it over ice with a little unsweetened almond milk, but only after I've had a full glass of room temperature water. No ice, just water. That one small step makes a world of difference. It may sound like a tiny change, but when your arteries are older, every little bit counts. I can feel the difference now. My mornings feel lighter, my head clearer. No more racing pulse or shaky hands. But iced coffee wasn't the only mistake I was making. Let me tell you about another drink I trusted for far too long. One that looked healthy on the outside, but was quietly stressing my heart from the inside. 100% juice on the label, 0% benefit for my aging heart. You know, for the longest time, I believed I was doing something good for myself. Every morning, right after my iced coffee, I'd grab a tall glass of orange juice from the fridge. Not the cheap kind. The one with the label that said 100% juice, no sugar added, full of vitamin C. I remember hearing somewhere that it was good for my eyes, good for my blood. Drink your OJ, Gerald, it'll keep you sharp. That's what I told myself, every single day, for years. But what I didn't know was that bottle of juice had no fiber. None. Just a concentrated hit of fructose waiting to spike my blood sugar, especially on an empty stomach. According to Harvard Health, drinking fruit juice without the fiber of the whole fruit causes a sudden flood of sugar into your bloodstream. That spike doesn't just raise your glucose, it also raises your blood pressure. It makes your arteries stiffen. And over time, that kind of daily shock can wear down the heart of a man my age. I thought I was doing something healthy. I thought I was feeding my brain. But the truth was, I was just pouring liquid sugar down my throat and calling it wellness. It's sneaky because it tastes so fresh, so natural. But even those juices that say not from concentrate still go through processing. They sit on shelves. They lose the enzymes, the antioxidants. What's left is sweetness and a few vitamins, but none of the balance your body needs. After my hospital visit, I started reading more. And the more I read, the more betrayed I felt by that orange bottle in my fridge. I replaced it with something simple. I started eating a small orange instead, or blending whole fruit with a little water and a spoon of chia seeds. That way, I got the fiber. I got the slow release. And I didn't send my heart on a roller coaster ride first thing in the morning. These days, I look back and wonder how many of us got fooled by the same label. We trust the word juice because it sounds like nature. But for seniors like us, nature needs to come with balance. The kind you only get when you eat the whole fruit. But orange juice wasn't the only trap hiding in my fridge. There was another kind of drink I used to reach for when I thought I was making a healthier choice. Something with 0 sugar on the label, and 0 mercy for my brain. 0 sugar doesn't mean 0 danger. I used to be proud of how disciplined I was. While others reached for soda, I went for the diet version. No sugar, fewer calories. I'd pat myself on the back thinking, Gerald, you're staying sharp, keeping your waistline in check. At 73, keeping the belly from expanding felt like winning a small war every day. And those cans of diet soda lined up in my fridge were my trusted allies. But then came the warning. Not from a doctor, but from a nurse I chatted with during my recovery. She asked me straight out, "Do you drink diet soda?" When I said yes, her face tightened. She told me about recent studies, including one by the American Heart Association, showing that seniors who drank diet sodas daily had a 31% higher risk of stroke. I blinked, confused. How could something with 0 sugar raise stroke risk? So I started digging. Turns out, those artificial sweeteners like aspartame and sucralose don't just confuse your taste buds. They confuse your entire system. They trick your brain into expecting sugar. Your insulin still spikes even when no sugar arrives. Over time, this messes with your metabolism. Your blood vessels become less responsive. Your nerves jittery. Your heart rhythm unpredictable. It's like the body prepares for battle every time you crack open a can, but the enemy never shows up. And that confusion causes stress in all the wrong places. I didn't know any of that when I chose soda over water. I just thought I was being smart. I wanted the fizz, the flavor, the feeling of having a treat without guilt. But I ended up trading sugar for something even more sinister. And perhaps worse, I stopped drinking plain water altogether. My body stayed in a state of mild dehydration. I didn't feel it at first, but looking back, the signs were there. Tired afternoons, brain fog, occasional heart skips I brushed off as getting older. Now, instead of soda, I pour myself sparkling water with a few slices of lemon or cucumber. It's refreshing, gentle, and it doesn't confuse my brain or overwork my heart. The taste is lighter, but the peace of mind is heavier. And I've learned to appreciate that kind of balance more than any fake sweetness. Still, the worst choice I ever made in the morning wasn't about what I drank, but what I didn't drink at all. And that, more than anything else, might have been my biggest mistake. The label promised energy. What I got was a silent stroke warning. There was a summer a few years back when I thought I was doing everything right. I had just turned 70 and wanted to keep my body moving. So I made it a habit to go walking every morning around 6 a.m., right before the heat in Arizona turned cruel. I'd lace up my sneakers, stretch a little on the porch, and grab my bottle of Gatorade from the fridge. It felt like the responsible thing to do: hydrate, replenish, stay energized. But what I didn't realize was that energy drinks and sports drinks like that were never made for people like me. They're built for athletes burning off calories in 2-hour training sessions, not for a retired engineer strolling around the neighborhood. Each bottle I drank came loaded with caffeine, sodium, and artificial dyes. I thought I was nourishing my body, but I was silently exhausting my heart. One morning, I remember feeling a strange flutter in my chest while walking. My palms were sweaty, but not from heat. I felt oddly thirsty, even though I had just finished my drink. Later, I learned that high doses of caffeine and sodium can actually dehydrate you by pulling water out of your cells. And those flashy colors, they're chemicals, additives that don't belong in an aging bloodstream. I learned that energy drinks stimulate your nervous system so intensely they can cause arrhythmias and raise your blood pressure fast. Add that to already aging arteries, and it's a recipe for serious trouble. A subtle imbalance in electrolytes can trigger heart palpitations, and for people over 60, the heart doesn't bounce back the way it used to. After my stroke scare, I stopped cold. I switched to something simpler. These days, I drink warm lemon water with a tiny pinch of pink Himalayan salt before my walk. It supports my body without overwhelming it. And more importantly, it respects the fact that I'm not 40 anymore. We spend so many years pushing ourselves to do more, move faster, stay young. But sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for your body is slow down. Listen, choose gentler fuel. But of all the drinks I used to reach for, the most dangerous one wasn't full of caffeine or sugar. It was the one I forgot entirely, and that neglect nearly cost me everything. No sip could mean no signal reaching your brain. I used to think a glass of water could wait until after breakfast, maybe after coffee, maybe after toast. It felt like something I could put off, just a minor detail in my morning routine. But that small delay came with a heavy cost I didn't realize until it was almost too late. You see, after sleeping 7 or 8 hours, our bodies are more dehydrated than we think. I didn't feel thirsty, so I assumed everything was fine. But what I didn't know is that by the time I was sipping my coffee, my blood had already thickened like syrup. That's what the doctor told me when he showed me the scan. He said, "Gerald, your blood this morning wasn't flowing like water. It was crawling like honey." That hit me hard. The heart is a pump, and when the liquid it pushes becomes too thick, it has to strain. That strain doesn't stay in your chest. It reaches your brain. It narrows your blood vessels. It starves your neurons. And sometimes it forms tiny clots that block the very signals your brain depends on. Looking back, the signs were there. The sluggishness, the confusion, the way my vision sometimes went blurry for a few seconds before clearing up. I blamed it on age. I blamed it on bad sleep. But I never blamed it on the absence of something so simple: a single glass of water. Now, before I do anything in the morning, even before I stretch or put on my slippers, I drink a full glass of warm water. No lemon, no ice, just pure water. It's my reset button. It wakes up my circulation. It clears the fog in my head. It gives my heart and brain the head start they deserve. I sometimes think how strange it is that the most powerful change I made wasn't a pill or a surgery. It was a habit. One glass, first thing. And that's when I realized it wasn't just about removing the bad drinks. It was about giving my body what it was quietly begging for all along. I didn't change my whole life. I just changed the first glass I reached for every morning. That was the beginning. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't hard. But it changed everything. Now when I wake up, the first thing I do is drink a glass of warm water. I sit with it for a few quiet minutes by the window. No rush, no noise, just letting it wake me up the right way. Then I take a slow walk around the block, just 15 minutes, nothing intense. Just me, the air, and the rhythm of my breath. When I get back, I slice some fresh fruit. Sometimes it's berries, sometimes an apple. I sprinkle in a few chia seeds. It's simple, but it gives me something real, something my body actually knows what to do with. And yes, I still have my coffee, but now it's a small black cup I brew myself. No syrup, no cream, just the aroma of the beans and the quiet of the morning. It feels like a ritual, a gift I give myself every day. The result? My blood pressure is steady, I sleep deeper, I wake up clearer. My mornings no longer begin in chaos. They begin in calm, and from that calm, everything else follows. I used to think I had to fix everything at once. But no, just one change, one cup. That's all it took to turn the tide. And if you're still holding on to that old drink every morning, maybe it's time to let go and give your heart a quieter start. Some mornings I still sit by the same window. The light hasn't changed much. The breeze still moves the curtains just the way it did years ago. But there's one thing that's different now. In my hand, there's no longer a cold cup of sweetened coffee. It's just water, clear, simple, alive. Looking back on everything I've shared with you today, I don't feel regret. I feel grateful. Grateful that I got the chance to notice, to ask questions, to choose again. I used to believe that aging meant decline, that once you passed a certain point, your habits were set in stone. But I've learned that the smallest shift made at the right moment can ripple through your entire life. You don't have to give up everything. You don't have to fix it all at once. Just start with the first thing you drink. Let that one choice speak kindness to your heart, to your brain, to your future. And if you know someone who still begins each morning with the wrong sip, send them this video. You never know. You might be the reason their heart keeps beating strong. You might be the reason they remember your name for years to come.